All right. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here on this, here in Syracuse, chilly Friday afternoon. Thank you, Allison Kessler and Liz Holloway, for putting our now second alumni career conversation together for today. We will be having a few more coming up, and we can share those at the end of this, this session to kind of go over that. Just a few housekeeping things I wanted to go over. If you are on this, please keep yourself muted until the very end where we can ask some questions. If there are any questions that do come up, please feel free to put them in the chat section, type those in there throughout the whole presentation, and we can definitely come back to them at the end as well. So without further ado, let me present to you Margot Kanugris. Hopefully I'm saying that properly, Margot.
Yes, you got it.
Margot is a 2012 Whitman graduate. She majored in management, marketing, and public communications. After graduation, Margot joined IBM as a consultant and has held a variety of positions over the last 8 years, and her current role as of right now is Senior Managing Consultant. So thank you so much for being here today with us, Margot, and leading the presentation of navigating your career search and transferring your skills and interests to the workplace. So I'll hand it on over to you, okay?
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
Yes.
And good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored to be joining you, and I'm excited to be discussing navigating your career search and transferring your skills and interests to the workplace. This would have been a very different conversation 3 months ago, and it will be a very different conversation 3 months from today. But I'm happy to have an open dialogue. Don't hesitate to reach out and continue the conversation with me. I am by no means an expert in this area, but I am in corporate America. I work at a top Fortune 500, as Emily mentioned, and supported a senior vice president who reported to the CEO, and am observing firsthand how companies are reacting and dealing with COVID-19 and what is and will be the new normal when it comes to these 3 topic areas. Just trying to advance my screen here. All right, so navigating your career search, transferring your skills to the workplace, and also your interests. So as I go through, I will discuss what I am seeing and my recommendations for you, as well as my experiences and what I wish I knew or listened to more intently when I was in your shoes. Just trying to advance here. Okay, so VUCA, what does it stand for? Does anybody know? Has anybody heard this terminology before? All right, well, it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's a term that's been thrown around in publications about leadership and how the ability to navigate it is one of the testaments of whether or not you're a good leader. And it has never been more true than today. And the one way you can demonstrate your ability to manage in these times is by being flexible and understanding of the current environment. Now, navigating your career search in these environments. Be flexible. Everybody who's in college or graduating is in the same boat. And I know it is difficult to wrap your mind around, but that is the reality. And it is also the reality for the rest of the world. Everyone is trying to figure out how to operate. And for those of you who are, seniors or juniors who are in a job or internship search, I'm here to tell you that the talent acquisition function of companies and their job portals really cannot be trusted at this time. Companies are scrambling for their near-term financial value and trying to build more flexible future operating models. That said, they will figure this out. They will start hiring again, but it will take time, so I stress patience. So the question is, as companies begin to open back up, how do you differentiate yourself in this environment? I know you will all have great resumes, tailored cover letters, but in these unprecedented times, more than ever, it is critical that you use your network, classmates, professors, the Career Center, alumni, what have you. My experience was much different than yours. I didn't know what I wanted to do and faced a very similar dilemma when I was in high school looking at college. I wanted to be in business. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, and I wanted to be a doctor in an OR. I ended up going to school for business, but came out still thinking, I don't know what I wanted to do. Still had very similar interests, and was trying to go the marketing route, if you will. I had an internship offer at JP Morgan in business ops. I had an opportunity at GE Comms by ways of the leadership program that they used to do on campus. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, as well as the MLS marketing division, which was run through ESPN. And then my Writing 307 professor asked us to write about our dream job. And I didn't know what my dream job was. But my next door neighbor was a consultant for IBM. And I called her up to interview her about my quote unquote dream job. And at the end of the interview, she asked me about what I was doing this summer, because at that time I was a junior, rising senior. I didn't know. I presented her the options. And she said, well, we just started this consulting internship program. And if you're interested, I would love to put your resume in the pile. And the rest is history. I got the internship. And although I wasn't wild about the work itself, I really liked the people and saw that the opportunities were endless. So I have had a lot of roles since coming here, and definitely a bit unconventional, but the moral of the story is that's okay. And this is not a cookie cutter career path. There is no cookie cutter career path anymore. And additionally, the other lesson that I urge is that even though I had two positions that I found by ways of, Whitman, and I was about to say IBM, Whitman and the Career Center, two of those opportunities, including one of which being the IBM one, were not. They were through my personal and professional networks that I had built outside of Syracuse. So just something to keep in mind. So, questions to ponder. What industry do you want to be in? Right now, I would say I would be open to any industry, but certain industries, can't seem to be hiring enough people. Those are industries like consumer packaged goods, commonly known as CPGs, right? Your Procter & Gamble's, your Unilevers, as well as healthcare, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Merck. Right now, especially in healthcare, they're pandemic proof. And this may determine also the industry that you choose to go into may determine how fast the hiring engine will start back up again. Secondly, I would urge you all to take a look at how companies you're interested in and applying to are reacting to COVID. How are they treating their people, and how are they treating their customers? And this is in particularly important for two reasons, right? Because you're going to have to start that culture most likely and embody yourself in that culture virtually. And need to know that you're going to enjoy the people that you're working with. And then secondly, how are they treating their customers? And I was just watching the business news today while I was eating lunch, and the jobs report came out this morning, and companies are really trying to do right by both, and they're struggling to, but they're really trying to do right by both their people and their customers and clientele. And then lastly, so many of you have dreamed of moving to New York City or a big city to pursue your career. But the reality of it is, do you really need to be paying rent when you're living in your mom's house like I am right now, right? So I'm still paying New York City rent, but I'm outside the city. So something to think about. You might not need to move out right away, and I'll have you know, and I will allude to this at other parts during my presentation. I actually did not move out of my parents' house for the first 4 years because I spent 4 years on the road. So next, conversations to have. So given this environment, given what's going on, what are some of the conversations you should be having? So like I said, network with people in your personal circle. your family, your friends, people through your clubs, your Greek life, your home friends. Academic, these are your professors. These are your career advisors. These are, again, your alumni through Women Connect and other events. You may have other professional connections, be it you had a previous internship or a previous job, and other LinkedIn connections. And then the fourth and final one is kind of what I call the concentric circle degrees, the second and third degree connections, if you're familiar with the LinkedIn terms. And I caveat those because I really urge you to be deliberate and thoughtful and intentional with them. Try and get an introduction. For those of you who joined Josh last week, I know that he spoke about this as well. Remember, they're doing you a favor, so just make sure that you're really intentional about that. And it's really important that you remember, and I think that this is so important, that you remember your the network that you have outside of the wonderful faculty and staff here, and that is your alumni network. So I can't stress it enough. I tell parents all the time when they would come to Lubin House, why am I going to pay this tuition for my kid to go to Syracuse when they could go to a state college? And I tell them time and time again, you are paying for the resources in which come with a vast alumni network. So moving on. Any questions thus far before I move into the next topic? Okay, so transferring your skills to the workplace. So you've navigated this VUCA environment, and now how do you transfer your skills? So the strongest skills you can bring to the workforce today is being able to be effective and innovative in this virtual environment. So what valuable skills can you demonstrate in an interview? And maybe it's just as simple as some certifications that you've gained during this time. Companies like Salesforce and HubSpot and Khan and Coursera and IBM are offering free certifications that employers could be looking for or want to hear about how have you been spending this time and why they should hire you. It's also worthy of a mention that you are the most technically savvy people entering the marketplace right now. So you are used to virtual everything. And how can you use that to your advantage and showcase those skills as you transition into the working environment? Next, what do you want to be known for? So this has in particularly gained significant traction at IBM since I joined. Part of it was a cultural issue, but we've put a lot of emphasis on this. Being a thought leader and being socially eminent has become exorbitantly important. And for your generation, you guys refer to this as being influencers. And don't underestimate the power of your influence. I've tried to be consistent, but it is hard with other competing priorities to keep up my socially eminent self. But I'm trying. For me, I found that thing I wanted to be known for by honing in on my strongest skills, which are my soft skills. They always have been. My innate ability to build, foster, and maintain relationships. I am not a techie, despite the company I work for. I am not a techie. But my ability to connect the dots and connect with people is what got me to where I am today. And I enjoy the work I did with early professional hires and executives in employee engagement and experience and development. And that was how I decided that this was really a space that I wanted to be eminent in. And it's all around the employee experience. So then not only is it what you want to be known for, it's then about, well, then how do you transfer all of these interests into the working environment? So this was, and I thank Allison dearly for this, because I actually think that this is the most valuable lesson I can bring to the table, is this was my most favorite part of the prompt I was given for today. And it was the hardest part for me to navigate when I came into the working world. And I actually thought back as I was thinking about this presentation today, and I thought, why was this so difficult? Because it wasn't hard when I was in high school. So when you're applying for college, it was important to demonstrate that you were a well-rounded person. And when I came into the working world, I completely lost sight of all other dimensions of myself. I just buried my head in work. And it is so critically important to be authentic and be able to feel like you can bring your whole self to work. And I think that this is even more important in this in this virtual environment than it ever has been before. So what are your passions? And how are you going to be able to bring them to the table? And how are you going to be able to whistle while you work? Incorporate your passions into your day today, because once you do start working, this is where you will spend a majority of your day. Some of your passions can be a part of the roles you take on. Others can be pet projects. And like I said, this is much easier said than done. It's still much easier said than done for me. I'm still working on it personally. And even though you might not be able to bring your passions to the table right away, don't stop trying to find the mediums in which you can. So this is my favorite slide. So for myself, I categorize my passions into professional or personal and professional centric groups, starting with my family and my friends. So top left corner. One of the first things my coworkers learn about me is I come from a big fat Greek family. And in one way, shape, or another, my family dynamics are relatable to the movie, and I own every part of that myself. And as I thought about this part of my presentation, I also realized how young you all are and that you may not have ever seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding. But if you haven't, I urge you to. Secondly, I also feel very fortunate in my life and enjoy give back efforts. Every year, I'm the captain of a team of riders who raises $40,000 year over year for rare cancer research. And the foundation, Cycle for Survival for Memorial Sloan Kettering, raises over $40 million a year for rare cancer research. And I'm very passionate about this cause for personal reasons. I brought this amazing cause to IBM. I started a few teams in New York City, and then also started up teams in other IBM hub cities, specifically starting with the early professional hire population that I love and adore. To round out my personal passions is health and wellness. I am the New York City well-being champion for the local offices. And now in light of COVID, I'm teaching my coworkers Pilates before the workday begins. As for my professional interests, like I said, it took me 4 years before I was able to navigate my way to working in my professional passion areas. I wanted to use my high EQ to be able to work with people more than work with technology. I started in a more traditional consulting career path, as I alluded to, flying to clients. I was on 4 flights a week after week, and I had no life until I was able to network my way to a talent engagement. And I did that by letting it be known that, I'm not a techie. I don't want to be doing technology. I want to be working with people. And I was passionate about this space. So the lesson is even if you can't immediately work in your area of interest, network and let your interests be known so that when an opportunity arises in an area that you're interested in and passionate about, your name rises to the top of that person's head. And they say, Susie wanted to do that. Let's call her. So 4 years after being a road warrior, I moved to New York City. Like I said, I was living in this house then, up until then. and I'm back here now, but I moved to New York City to redesign our early professional hire program and work on employee engagement and community building. Now we're all forced to work remotely, but for IBM and specifically for consultants, we were used to a remote working environment, but not at this scale and not a forced environment like this. So for early professional hires, which is what we classify as 2 years out of university, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, it was hard to adapt because college is synonymous for community. So in doing that work and building that sense of community and belonging at the foundation of the company, I was introduced to the opposite end of the spectrum, the executive ranks. They also needed a sense of community and belonging, because I will tell you firsthand, it is lonely at the top. And they also needed some development. And in doing that work, that was how that work was predominantly leadership transformation work. And then up until the last 9 months, I spent my time one-on-one as the chief of staff to a senior vice president. When I was able to couple my personal and professional passions, that was when my career advanced most quickly. And again, although this was not a traditional consultant career path, it has afforded me the opportunities and opened many doors for me. I might not, and that's okay. It might not happen right away, but be patient, be flexible, let it be known what you're interested in and what you want to be known for, and network with those people, with the people in those spaces. So before I close, I want to leave you with this simple analogy, which you may have heard in these most recent times, but I think it's an important one to remember. We are all in the same storm. We're just in different boats. How are you going to make the best of the tool set in your boat, adapt, grow, and be patient and flexible? We're going through a time when our perceptions and needs are completely different. Each of us will emerge in our own way from this storm. It is very important to see beyond what is seen at first glance, not just looking, but actually seeing. And we're all on different ships or in different boats during this storm, experiencing a very different journey. And I added this part of it. You will all land at a destination, and I am more than happy and here to help you get there. So without further ado, if you aren't sick of me already, thank you. I thank you for your time, and I know that you all will do great things. I believe that my information and contact information will be made available. So I urge you to go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to continue the conversation beyond this call. But before I turn it over to all of you for any questions you may have or comments, I wanted to leave you with some resources. I'd be remiss without sending you the IBM skills page, free events, courses, training programs, what have you, free events. And they're for students, professionals, as well as custom education programs, curated collections of badges and certifications that are transferable across companies and across industries. TED Talks, although quite trite, are always good for a quick lesson on leadership or talent or really any topic. Around health and wellness, Nike is still, their training app is still free right now. I know Peloton's is not, so sending you that one. The Calm app for meditation, I actually found meditation in college and then began using it heavily in my last role as a chief of staff. And lastly, I know that people really want to help in these horrible, unprecedented times. And it's hard to, because you don't want to put yourself at danger. So I think that one of the best ways that you can help, and I used to do this all the time in college, and it's totally free, is to donate blood. So I hope you find some of these resources useful, helpful, what have you. And I think that's it. So I'll turn it over to any questions or comments.
Yes, thank you so much, Margot. Such valuable information. I think very relatable as well, because you shared a lot of information that we all went through ourselves, I think, at one point too. So, but yes, are there any students? Again, we can either type in your questions, or if you want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to ask a question. All right. Well, I know that I have a few questions, so I'm happy to start it off if that would be
Sure.
helpful. I wanted to go back to what you had mentioned when you took the position with IBM. You had mentioned you liked the people, the options were endless, but you didn't necessarily love your role. So can you tell the students kind of how you made that decision to maybe take a step in a direction that maybe you weren't going to be thrilled with immediately, but you definitely saw, like you said, the opportunities down the road, and how you kind of got to that point?
Yeah, so I'll actually start with the funniest part of all of this, right? So the funniest part of all of this is, ironically, the internship was in SAP. And if any of you looked at my LinkedIn profile, I now work in SAP. So the irony is that even if you aren't passionate about a certain technology or whatnot, you can be on another side of it. So let me explain what I mean by that, and then I'll come back and answer your question. But I think this is a valuable lesson. So my internship was all about SAP, which is we love acronyms here at IBM, which is an ERP, an enterprise resource planning system. SAP is on the likes of Oracle, if you've heard of Oracle. And it's all about your HR, your finance, your procurement, what have you. And I, as an intern, I was doing defect resolution. I won't even begin to explain to you what that is, but I was doing defect resolution tracking, okay, on a delivery project for Estee Lauder that had its perks because I was able to get free perfume and makeup. But and I was on defect resolution. It was I was like in minutia. I had no idea what was going on. And it just wasn't for me. It was really technically driven, and I wasn't passionate about it whatsoever. And I ironically am now in SAP, but I'm on the go-to-market side in more of a sales capacity, showing clients how SAP can deliver value at this level and not down here. So I say that because even though you might not be passionate about that one thing, there's other dimensions to it, or that one task, there's other role, there's other dimensions to it. Going back to actually answering your question is, I saw the other opportunities, and I knew that I would be able to, and again, I would be able to, I wasn't afraid to ask for introductions to people, to make the connections, to move into a space that I was more interested in. But I do think, and I feel this deeply, I do think that the people make the difference. So like I was talking about my passions and being able to bring my whole self to work. You got to like the people you work with, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. So I think that is so valuable, that even if you may not like a role right away, you got to like the people. You got to feel like, these are my people. I mesh with them. At IBM, we all see ourselves right now, especially with COVID, we all see ourselves as the hero. Most of us are type A. I mean, not all of us, but we kind of run on a type A mentality. We live quarter to quarter. So I think that plays into that culture, that cultural piece. Definitely plays into it. But there are other aspects that are difficult too. Like I said, we always have been used to working virtually, and some of that I didn't really like. I liked when I started working with talent that I was in the office every day, and I created the sense of community and people in my network. But I would say that the biggest thing is making sure that you do indeed like the people, and the culture is something you can get behind.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to go to a couple questions on the chat here. So from Allison Welsh, how would a student start the networking process if they have not done it before? What advice do you have for them?
Well, you can start with me. I'm more than happy to talk about your interests and what you're interested in, and kind of where you see yourself. But start, like I talked about, those 4 areas, your personal, your academic, professional. Start with your friends, like ask them what they're thinking. Ask them about what their parents do. I think that, like, and I would say when I was younger, like even in high school, like that was the easiest place to talk to people. My family always had like neighborhood barbecues and that sort of things, and starting conversations with your neighbors about, what they do. I think that that's a really easy way to start. And then again, like I said, you and your parents spend a lot of money on your Syracuse education. Use Whitman Connect. I don't know if that's the official way to go about linking and connecting with alumni, or be it LinkedIn, but connect with people. Go on there and look up, what are you interested in? Who are the people in that space, or what are the companies that you're interested in, and who has a mutual connection, and asking for an introduction to talk to that person. I will say, in talking to, and I work with a ton of smart people, and when I came to IBM, my hiring class, it was me and a kid from UNC, and everybody else was from the Ivies. I mean, I work with a ton of smart people, and when I tell them the stuff that I do and the resources that are available, I'm like, okay, either you don't know what's going on at these big endowment Ivy Leagues, or you're just like, they just don't have the resources there available to them. And I'm like, this is astonishing. Mm-hmm. So you really are so fortunate that Syracuse has such a vast alumni network. And I would just say, there's no shame in reaching out. And like I said, we're all in a virtual environment anyway. So now's the time. And now's the time to try something new, right? Everyone's living through this together.
Right.
Does that answer your question? Oh, you might be on mute.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Awesome.
So Scott had another question as well. So how have your clients changed as you have been in different roles? For example, different company sizes, different industries. How has the scope of projects changed as well?
Interesting question. So, so for big, large scale implementations, which is IBM's, our consulting business's bread and butter. So when I started, these programs were big 5, 8, 10-year implementations. People were literally living in 2 states. I already have taxes that I paid to the state of Boston or Massachusetts, because I was living in Boston last year. But I mean, they were long-term programs. And now we see, no matter what the size of the company, shorter term programs, that way the companies don't have to shell out as much budget. And that's also as a result of technology progression, right? These programs don't have to be that long. We've developed the assets to accelerate them. We have industry templates and accelerators that help in doing that. And then I would say the other thing that has changed too is what clients are paying, and even IBM, right? What we're paying more close attention to, right? I will tell you, when I first came to IBM, we weren't worried about talent and talent retention. And let me tell you, more than ever, we're worried about talent retention and the war on talent, because we can't hire people fast enough with the skills that they need for the projects that we have. So does that answer the question, Scott? Yeah. So being totally so the more you can skill up, the better you are. But I would also say focus that, right? Focus that skilling up in an area that you want to be known for, whether it's AI or Internet of Things or marketing, whatever that is, or data analytics. Skill up in those areas.
Great. Another question from Nicholas. How has IBM changed the way in which it operates as a result of the pandemic? Possibly changes in how you serve clients or types of issues clients come to IBM with?
Yeah, so interesting. So great question, Nicholas. So let's talk about the first part. So we've changed drastically. So we were always on the road and we have completely stopped, right? We're all working from home as the rest of you are as well. What we've been forced to do is, because otherwise clients would just stop doing business with us. What we actually did is all of the business that we would have to get on a plane to go do, we then had to look at all of those processes and say, okay, what can we actually continue to do remotely without a risk of missing a deadline or a milestone, and publish that. So that's first. And I think that will drastically change the way we do business in the future, because not as many of us will be getting on planes to go do work for two reasons. One, right now our clients, even as stay-at-home guidance, shelter in place limitations are lifted, I still think that clients are going to be, until there is a vaccine, they're going to be resistant to let us back on their property. So what will continue to happen is there will be cost cutting as a result. We will be looked at more critically as to, is this absolutely critical that you need to be on client site to do the work because you've already proven yourself to be able to do it remotely. So I think that this will continue to happen. I think that travel and expense budgets will be slashed. I think that it's the number one way the consulting business is going to retain the majority of its of its consultants, is by cutting those budgets, because those budgets on big projects is a lot of money. And then how are we helping? So right now we are doing these 2-week rapid impact assessments to basically give our clients a business case for the value pools in which they can take advantage of to liquidate a little bit quicker and improve some processes. And then after that 2-week assessment, what are the next steps and recommendations to kind of help them along? It helps for clients that we may not have as big of a footprint in. It helps us hopefully, get more business in the long run. And for those in which we have a trusted relationship and partnership with, it only deepens our relationships. And truth be told, people buy people. They don't buy technology.
Yeah, that was the last written question. Were there any other questions that anyone had at this point?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Is it Matthew?
Yes, hi.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, you're fine.
Also, just like as a quick side note, I'll be starting work with IBM as an intern in like 3 weeks, so I'm super excited for that.
But, awesome, Matthew. Will definitely connect with me. Find me on Slack when you are here. Where are you? What part are you joining?
So I'll be joining the Summit program. So I'll be working with mostly like supply chain solutions. It's like Sterling Supply Chain. So yeah, really excited for that.
Awesome. That's great. That's great.
So my question is pretty much for anyone joining a larger company. So obviously it's pretty intimidating joining a company so large. Mm-hmm. So what steps or like tips do you have for people to kind of make that community feel smaller, to kind of feel more at home and not kind of lost in a sea of so many people?
Yeah, so that's a great point, right? So The first thing for you specifically is you're joining the Summit program, which Summit is a program for everybody else on the line. So the first thing is you're joining a program, which is phenomenal because that innately will create a sense of community, right? The class that you come up in with, I think you said in 3 weeks or a couple weeks, that group will innately be a smaller community for you. So that's first and foremost. So that's great. And I, especially given these times, I think, and for developmental purposes, I think that it's really beneficial coming out of school to join some sort of formalized program because and especially at a big company, and the bigger companies do have these programs, is because it creates that sense of community so that you're not, lost in a sea of thousands. So first of all, that will create a sense of community. The second thing is, finding a smaller niche group within that. So maybe it's the actual Sterling group that you network with and find out what they're doing and what they're doing personally. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Slack, but that's the medium of communication that we use at IBM. And it's very easy actually now, despite all of the resources that are out there on the intraweb, W3 as we call it, to find those communities. So once you're connected, definitely link up with me. But I think the first thing is, if you're in a program, that's first and foremost, and you have a specialty, there are communities around that. And then the second thing is, as soon as you are up and running, you're going to have a manager, and that manager will also, having conversations with them about your interests, will be able to direct you to other resources. So for instance, I was interested in, when I first started, in doing work around social media, and Twitter was a big thing when I first graduated, and working with a group within IBM who was a part of our little Twitter partnership. So, getting connected with them so that I created a sense of community there. So I would say first is the group that you're joining. And then secondly is having a conversation with your manager and your peers about what other groups you can imminently join. But definitely connect with me once you're up and running, because you're joining a great group, and they will have plenty of resources available to you for sure.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have another written in question. We have, do writing communication skills or accomplishments help you to stand out to an employer such as IBM? Or are companies starting to focus more on Excel proficiency, data analytics, etc.?
So I'm going to give you the classic consultant answer. It depends. But my gut says the latter. My gut says the latter. I think that writing communications and accomplishments are great if you're going into marketing and, PR for a company. But for the most part, such as IBM, your ability to show you're proficient in Excel and data and analytics, and making, recommendations based on the data you're looking at is definitely more valuable to us these days. So I would definitely say my gut says the latter. But if you're going into PR, or you're, a Whitman Newhouse dual, and you're going to go work for CNN or the New York Times or Condé Nast, the former is more important. But for us, I would definitely say your ability to be proficient in pivot tables and Excel spreadsheets is of much greater value to us. Quite frankly, I wish I had more of those skills.
Wonderful. And let's see, I know we still have a little bit of time, but we do have one more question here, and then we can maybe wrap up. Do you have any tips on interning in a virtual environment? How would an intern maybe stand out in a virtual environment as well?
So let me ask a question. Mm-hmm. I assume some of you are probably doing internships virtually. I would say the first thing is is you have to be, and it's really hard for people who are probably introverted to do this, right? You have to make that extra effort to be seen. I think that that's probably the biggest thing, because when you're working virtually, it's really easy. It's really easy to hide, right? So I think it's, that stepping outside your comfort zone. You're not growing unless you're stepping outside your comfort zone. And I would say that if you're an intern in this virtual environment, I mean, and this really is advice for anyone. I really think that you have to challenge yourself to do that one more uncomfortable thing in a virtual environment, because it will be, to your point, very easy to not stand out, even though you may be working really hard for the company that you're interning for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say it's doing that one thing that you're like, oh, I wouldn't normally do this, or oh, I wouldn't normally post in that discussion group, or and when you feel that pang, you just got to bite the bullet and you got to do it.
I like it. Wonderful. So if there aren't any other questions, I was just going to ask you to leave us with just your biggest piece of advice, maybe that you wish you had known when you were an undergraduate yourself. I know that's kind of loaded, but if you have just one thing to kind of leave the students with, what would it be?
Yeah. So, and I haven't done a good job of this yet, but from a skills perspective, I do really think I really wish that I had taken to heart how important accounting and finance was going to be in my world. I really do. I might, I'm taking Monday and Tuesday off, and I might dig out my old accounting and finance textbooks for some stuff. I really did take, and just your basic courses. I mean, I took that stuff for advantage and just wanted to get through it. And I really think that it is the underlying backbone. It is the underlying backbone of all companies. And I think that it's very important. And I, again, should have listened better to my mother when she told me how important it was going to be. So that's one from a skills perspective. And then secondly is I really do urge you to have conversations with people in areas that you find of interest, because you don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't know how long this virtual environment will be for. So you want to spend your days doing things that you love. And maybe that job isn't going to bring you the, biggest paycheck of graduating class of 2020, but that's okay. And it's really important to make sure that you spend your days doing work that you're passionate about and that you're happy with, and with people that you like.
Wonderful. Great advice. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, Margot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if there aren't any other questions, just wanted to mention we have in the next 2 weeks coming up some more alumni career conversations. Next week is with graduate Kelly Jaffe, who works as a tax marketing senior manager at PwC. She'll be speaking on leveraging your skills and embracing new career opportunities. That will be next Wednesday, May 14th at 12. So more information to come. And then the week after, we'll have Mike Gersha, who is the CEO of Rookie Road Incorporated. That'll be Friday, May 22nd, speaking on the value of entrepreneurial thinking and problem solving. So again, Margot, we can't thank you enough. The advice and the information is truly helpful to everyone on the call for sure. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. And feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Yes, everyone connect with Margot.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, guys.
You as well, Margot. Take care.
Be well.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.